At the time, I was watching a lot of episodes of the TV show Mad Men. Now, the lead character in Mad Men is Don Draper, and he's really mysterious and attractive. So I was like, well, that's what I'll do. I'll be mysterious, and so I'll become attractive. Now, the key problem here is that Don Draper is played by Jon Hamm. I am not played by Jon Hamm. And when I try and be mysterious, it just comes off as threatening. I once said to a woman with no discernible trace of irony, "You have no idea what I'm capable of." Sometimes it wasn't even like I was trying to chat these women up. Like, once I went into this pub and saw this girl I know, like, I'm friends with her, and I went up behind her, put my hands on her shoulders, and went to kiss her on the cheek, and at this point I realised this was not a girl I knew. This was a girl who looked like a girl I knew. Now, that is a retrievable situation. All you have to do is say, "I do apologise, madam. I thought you were someone else. Have a nice day." What you must not do is have your hands on a woman's shoulders, be this close to her face. When she turns around, just go, "Oh, dear." Because you have just scared a woman, ladies and gentlemen. Scared and kind of insulted, to be honest. So I'm in a relationship. The relationship is going well because she's a nice lady, you know. That a nice lady never sounds strong enough, does it? She's a nice lady. She's a solid fellow. If there was one thing I could change about my relationship, and it really would just be one thing. It's a very small thing. It's one thing, very small. It's one thing, it's very small. It's one thing, it's very small. It's one thing, it's one thing. And that thing would be my entire personality, because I really believe that's the last obstacle to us being truly happy, right? My girlfriend and I were in Australia last year, and we were in Sydney, and Sydney's an incredibly beautiful city. It really delivers on its postcode, right? There's a point you can stand in Sydney where you've got the Harbour Bridge on one side and the Opera House on the other side, and you can watch this, you can just stand there and just look at this incredible view. It's really, really beautiful. And I'm there with my girlfriend. We've had this amazing holiday together. We've grown closer as a couple, and we're in this incredible place. Now, that should be a moment of real fundamental existential calm for me, right? But for some reason, at that exact moment, the thought in my head was, this will be one of those things you look back on fondly when you've broken up. Who the hell thinks like that? Who can't experience one moment of joy without immediately thinking, that's one for the sorrow montage? That is weapons-grade pessimism. That's like someone saying, do you think this glass is half full or half empty? And me just replying, does it matter? One day we'll all be dead. And it surprised me. I didn't know I was capable of that sort of volcanic pessimism. It just sort of came out of nowhere. And I said to my girlfriend afterwards, I think I might be quite, you know, quite a pessimistic person. And she was like, yes, you are, Nish. Me and your friends talk about it all the time. And I felt so foolish because I felt like I had this whole sense of who I was as a person. And the more I talked to my girlfriend, the more that turned out to not be the case. I sort of think of myself as a sort of free spirit, an optimistic dreamer who wears his heart on his sleeve on his shirt, and his shirt on his torso, right? Now that I have a girlfriend, she's like, Nish, you were none of those things. You're an introverted pessimist, and frankly, it's quite difficult to be around you a lot of the time. Now, the problem is that for a long time I was single, so my personality was under no real intimate scrutiny. So I basically thought about a person that I would like to be, and then I just pretended I was that person. And because there was no one checking, there was no problem. So I was just walking around being like, I'm a great guy. And the only person there was me who was going, yes, you are, Nish, you are. An absolute legend, you're lucky to have you. And my problem is that if my personality has drifted, that is a serious issue, because I currently believe myself to be the best version of myself that I'd ever been. I think that I've learnt a lot, and I'm acting in a way in which I am really proud. Now, the problem is, clearly, I'm not the best version of myself that I've ever been, and this has happened before. I thought I was the best version of myself that I'd ever been when I was 18 years old. And when I was 18 years old, I was a jet-powered bellend. I used to wear a bandana and call people daddy-o. That's not acceptable. And the other problem is that I have a giant ego. Huge. I know you know, of all people, given what is happening right in front of you, right? I obviously think I'm something of a laugh, clearly, by my choice of profession. But you have no idea the extent to which my ego has got out of hand, right? A couple of days ago, I was having a coffee with my friend, and as I was speaking, I lost my train of thought. And the reason I lost my train of thought is because as I was speaking, in my head I started thinking, well, I am being very interesting here. I'm so interesting, I'm intellectually stimulating, I'm a great laugh. I'm jealous of people who get to meet me, that's the thing. So, the reason that my girlfriend and I have been out in Australia is I'd been out in Australia doing some gigs. I was doing some gigs at the Melbourne Comedy Festival. Now, the gigs were really fun, which is good because I didn't think they were going to be. Because before I went to do the gigs, there was an incident. Now, a lot of the time when you go to a comedy festival, there's too many comedians to interview, all sort of individually. So what they'll do is they'll send out Q&As. Now, these are all the same questions everyone gets, and they're all like, it's like a standard form that you get sent out. And they're all sort of boring questions like, where are you from, who are your favourite comedians, blah, blah, blah. Then, occasionally, journalists will get creative. I have no idea why they feel the need to ask wacky questions, but they ask some wacky questions. There'll be a question like, oh, if your comedy show was a dog, what kind of dog would it be? I'm so wacky. Maybe I should be a comedian. What? Shut up. Now, I'm filling one of these things out, and I'm happy to do it because I get to go to Australia, and I'm going through one of these questions, and there's also boring questions like, where are you from, who are your favourite comedians? Then, there is a question that's been personalised for me. It's in a different font, so I spot it a mile off. It's clearly been inserted into an existing document. And the question that these people had personalised for me was this: how come Christians are allowed to draw pictures of their prophets and Muslims aren't? To which the obvious answer is, I don't know. My parents are Hindus. I've got no idea why they would think I would know. Now, one of two things has happened here. Either these people have seen that I've got a foreign name and just thought, must be a Muzza, definite Muzza. Nish Kumar is a classic Muzza name. Or they think we have non-white people meetings where we assemble, set the non-white agenda for the year, and then retire to a screening room where we watch a DVD of Boys in the Hood. And let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. I was doing a gig in a part of the UK which I will not name, and there was a group of sort of nervous-looking middle-aged white people here, and it was a three-sided room. So there were two banks of seats here which were empty, apart from one black guy who was sat here, presumably because they were keeping an eye on him. And this guy obviously decided he was going to have some fun, right? Because when I used the phrase non-white people meetings, he turned to make sure that they were all looking at him, and then in full view of all of these people, just looked at me and went... You have not lived until you've seen a room full of middle-aged white people simultaneously shit their pants, right? So, obviously, I didn't know how to answer this question because this is a contentious subject, and, you know, I don't want to upset anybody. But I was offended. Like, I didn't think they had the right to ask me those kind of questions. My Muslim friends would know how to answer that question, so I felt very uncomfortable. But it was hard for me to articulate my discomfort because the next question was, oh, if your comedy show was grass, would you feed it to a horse? And I was like, you can't jump back into whimsy after you've just asked me a serious theological question. But then, luckily, there was a little scope for discussion, because the last question wasn't really a question. It was a task. They had given us the first half of a joke, and we had to complete the second half. They'd given us the feed line, we had to write the punchline. You're supposed to complete this in a way that shows your distinctive style of humour so people will come and watch you do the show. And the feed line that they'd given us, the first half of the joke, was a book walks into a bar and sees a bookcase. And this is how I finished the joke. A book walks into a bar and sees a bookcase. The book says, hey, bookcase! How come Christians are allowed to draw pictures of their prophets and Muslims aren't? And the bookcase said, I don't know. I am a bookcase. Such, have no idea about Islamic theology. I assume you've asked me because I'm a brown bookcase? In which case, you can go to hell. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been an absolute delight. My name is Nish Kumar. Thank you very much. Good night.